and we have some tips for people to go from white belt to pro. If they follow these things, their development in jiu-jitsu is going to just skyrocket, especially if you're over 40 or under 40 and you're white or blue belt or above.
It is actually true that I was thinking about this, that it's actually good to just get these points out there.
You're going to get these points
out there.
If
you do these things, you will get to a high level of jiu-jitsu.
It's like jiu-jitsu for dummies.
If you're not going to do it, at least know you didn't do it. Be like, okay, I didn't do it. Because I'm in that boat where I'm like, okay, I didn't do it. Fair enough. And I actually think that conversation has changed, because it used to be, and I've said it, so I'm as guilty as anyone.
Okay.
It used to be, just put in the time.
Oh, right.
Like, just mat time, you'll get there.
Right.
And we're sort of changing that view a little bit, right? Like the whole jiu-jitsu world is like, it's not really, you will get better. That will help to put in the time.
Right.
But time is not the same. Like, how do you put in the time? How much work do you put in? Sort of obviously really matters.
Definitely matters. Yeah.
It's not just show up. It's, are you doing these things? And if you're not, at least know you're not. At least then you can't be at home going, why aren't I improving as fast as I want to? It's like, why you're not doing these things.
Here's some simple things you can do that really aren't going to add much time or cost much energy to do. So last episode, we ran through 7 of them. We had 5 tips and 2 bonus. Because people like 5.
Right.
So today, we're just going to run through those 7, and then I got 4 others. And the very last one we're saving to the end of the episode is the most powerful one of them all.
You have to listen all the way to the end.
You have to. Yep. And you have to subscribe, because if you listen to it without subscribing,
it cuts off.
It cuts off. Yeah. It doesn't. You can't hear it. So you must subscribe and like the video or podcast or whatever,
and hit that bell thing. Right? Is that the subscribe?
Yeah. No, you subscribe, and then the bell thing is you get notified when a new video comes out. So you should totally do that. Definitely. And
also, they don't come out that often. It's not like if you hit the bell, you're going to be notified all the time. It's like you get one every week or 2.
If you're lucky. Yeah. Week or 2 weeks, something like that. And this will be episode 98. Pretty exciting, Dimitri. We're closing on 100.
On the big 100.
Yeah.
Extravaganza.
We committed to Dimitri to do 100.
And you've got big plans for the 100th episode, right?
Huge.
We've been planning that for almost a year now.
Yeah. Yeah. I got the permits for most of it. Yeah, it's going to be amazing.
Fire marshal has been notified.
All right. So let's run through the 7 tips to take you from white belt to pro. When I say pro, I got that idea from that Stephen Pressfield book, Turning Pro, where if you're really serious about doing something and developing something, you got to approach it in a more professional manner. You just can't haphazardly do something, okay?
A quick point before we even get started on that. I was thinking about, because a big part of jiu-jitsu for a lot of us is to be like, oh, I suck at jiu-jitsu.
Okay.
And I was thinking, and the flip side being like, I'm good, or like, I'm good, I'm not good.
Oh, right.
Correct me if I'm wrong. The mindset that you're promoting doesn't even think about, are you good or are you bad?
Correct.
Or do you suck or are you awesome? Or it's just like you are working on it.
Yes.
And you don't even really, as much as possible, think, am I good, is almost a meaningless way of framing it. It's more like, I have these problems to solve. I have weaknesses. I have strength. I'm working on them. And I'm trying to get better.
But Dan, people are obsessed with status. I had a really funny conversation yesterday with Ben Linsky. And so he trains jiu-jitsu, obviously. I think he's a blue belt now. And he says when people who he works with find out that he trains jiu-jitsu, they also know this other guy who trains with us. Should I say his name? I don't think they care, right? I don't think Ben cares. So Anthony Twining. So they're both Boston police officers. They're both really good at jiu-jitsu, great guys. And Ben always goes, they go, oh, Anthony trains too. And he goes, yeah. They go, are you better than him or is he better than you?
Yeah.
That's the immediate answer. They demand an answer to that. And then he goes, you don't even train jiu-jitsu. You don't even know what it means. And they're like, yeah, but is he better than you?
I just want to know who's better.
That's all they want to know.
I don't even want to know what it is, really. I just want to know who's better.
That's all they want to know.
Yeah.
So then he goes, I just get fed up. Now I go, he's better. Okay. Now what?
Yeah.
He's much better. You want to know what the status is? He's at the top. I'm at the bottom. Now what? Now where we go in this conversation? And they go, Oh, that's all I wanted. Just wanted to know that. I needed to know that. So we are obsessed with status, Dan. It's we're bucking human nature by not, but it doesn't serve us.
And whereas those guys are good at jiu-jitsu, what we're saying is it doesn't even matter, right? It doesn't matter. Like
I think it's a distraction.
They're both working on their jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, they're both developing. Ben Linsky in particular has made great progress lately. I noticed he's really developing. So, yeah, I mean, that's all that really matters. And the other stuff is actually detrimental to your development because you can, get frustrated. You can start thinking about things that aren't helping your development. So it's just a disaster. So, and you know what I did last weekend?
I do.
Dimitri, we went to the no-gi pans and competed. Yeah. And I competed in the ultra heavyweight category. Not just my head. I weigh about 180 right now, and this was over 230 pounds. So I wanted to challenge myself, go into big guys.
There's an absolutely hilarious picture. If we had prepared, we could put it up, I'm sure.
I could probably throw it up there, yeah.
Yeah, maybe. Like the person that you competed against.
I had one match, and I ended up jacking up my shoulder a little bit, so I didn't continue against the next big guy. I figured I ended up eking out a win. 5 seconds left. I got the sweep on the guy, and I won 2-0. And it was only 4 people in the bracket, so that gave me a silver medal. So I just took my silver and went home 10.
Were they all enormous?
The other guy was bigger. Yeah, he was a big dude. Yeah, and the other guy is super seasoned. You get points for winning the major tournaments. He has by far more points than anybody I've ever seen.
Is this the guy who won the whole thing, or
yeah. He wins like most of the time. He wins. Yeah.
So you sent me a picture of the guy you competed against,
right?
And he looks like comically gigantic, like compared to you.
Yeah, it looks like a comic book.
It looks like
hero.
Not someone you should be competing against.
Yeah, his shoulders and arms were just enormous. Yeah. Freakish, yeah.
Did he feel very strong?
Yeah,
I imagine
he did. And oddly enough, he was actually very powerful. Yeah.
The only good thing is we do have very strong, freakish people in the gym.
We do
over the years. And
yeah.
So there's nothing you haven't felt, I'm guessing.
Correct. But he was very powerful, skilled, good competitor. Like, I mean, I eked out the win. So what can you say? Like, the guy was really good. At one point, I felt myself flying through the air and landing on the concrete outside the mat area.
When you hurt your shoulder?
Yeah. And I was like, why am I flying through the air right now? What's going on?
Wait, were you from being down or from like standing?
We were standing, yeah.
And he just threw you?
Basically, like he had me like an overhook. And I was trying to pull my arm out. And then he just kind of instinctively shoved me. It was nothing incorrect for him to do. But I was like on my toes because he's bigger than me, so then I just went flying through the air. Yeah,
right. It looked a lot like that scene when the Hulk grabs Loki in the Avengers.
That's exactly it. Yeah, so it's dish ragging him. Yeah. That's exactly what it felt like. Yeah. So I was glad to get out of there alive, eke out a victory, but it was a great experience.
Again, it's about what you learn about competing against guys that much bigger and stronger.
Yeah, I learned some things, and I was nervous. I'm always researching and trying to develop methods to deal with anxiety before competing. And it's frustrating, Dan, because I've been competing for about 2 years now. I think we've been back since, it's over 2 years. September of 2018 is when I came back. And I'm like, God damn it, I'm still feeling anxiety. I'm down there the day before and like feeling some anxiety, and it's harder to enjoy your life when you have anxiety running underneath.
Are you getting complacent about doing the things you need to do to combat your anxiety? Are you sort of like, well, I'm not as anxious now, so I'm not, maybe skipping some of your breathing?
No, not really. You know what I think it is, Dan? I think I've made vast improvement in the last 2 years, but I don't recognize it. You know how that is? Like you forget how bad it really was. I think 2 years ago, it was brutally bad anxiety. And now it's just kind of naggingly bad. You know what I mean? And I think I'm being a little unrealistic to expect to have
It's very hard to remember states of mind.
It is,
I always say that in a lot of contexts. I was talking about it today about you might be stressed about like, oh, my kid in high school is stressing me out. And you're like, this is as stressful as ever. And you forget what it's like to have a newborn and 2 toddlers and dogs barking and you don't have money. And, you're like, life was a lot more stressful back then.
Right.
And you don't remember. You're sort of like, well, it's just
you
don't
remember how painful it was, right?
Yeah, you can't. And I have to get on the red line to get into work and with the baby and you know what I mean?
Wow. Yeah.
It was, but you don't remember that.
You don't. Yeah, even like down moments in our lives. I had a couple moments, I think when I was first getting divorced, it's such a bummer. Like you can like feel really bad, get really down, really depressed. And you don't remember it, right? Because it's just too goddamn painful. So you're like, I was kind of down, but if you really could go back there, it would seem profound, right?
Yeah. And the upside is, like, for me with climbing mountains, I used to say that for the hard hikes, there'd be a period on, near the end where I'd be like, get me off this goddamn mountain. Like, I'm like, why am I like, I'm
at
really,
the end of the
like, I'm so
ascent,
tired and I'm so like, what am I doing?
You're looking up at the peak and you're like, when is that goddamn thing going to be here? We're not at the top yet.
I'm so tired. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you forget.
And
you just sort of like,
wake up another day.
Yeah. So it helps that way. I used to say that about vacations. Maybe people out there can identify with this. Like, how many vacations are there where you're either your stomach's upset, or you're jet lagged, or you have a headache, cold, or drank too much or something, and like you never remember that. Like you're never when I was in Paris, I had this bad headache. You're just like, oh yeah, Paris, that was fun. Like you don't remember how you felt. Like you always just sort of feel like, oh, remember Italy, remember Florida, or if you haven't been to Italy, you know what I mean? Like and you just feel like, oh, it's great on the beach. You don't remember like, oh yeah, I was really sick that whole day. You just don't remember. It's
fascinating, right?
You can't remember how you used to feel.
So one of the things I did, Dan, is I had purchased, Gordan Ryan put out an instructional for mindset for jiu-jitsu, for training and for competing and everything. And I listened to that while I was getting ready to compete. And he had one section in there, and I found it very effective for helping me with my nerves. And he said something that's almost cliche. I'm sure you've heard it many, many times. And he says, all you're doing is you're going on a mat and you're doing jiu-jitsu. It's something you probably do 7 days a week. You probably do it I'm like, yeah, I do it every day, some days twice a day, and you're just doing it here. Like, there's absolutely nothing to be nervous about. It's just like getting in your car and driving down the street. It's something you just do. It's routine. And for some reason, hearing him say it, because he has that authority of being the greatest in the world right now, maybe the greatest of all time or something, that it really affected me. It made me feel way less nervous. Is that funny?
Yeah. He's right, too.
He's right. The other thing he said is, which I identified with, he said that his submission defense is so good. He's like, nobody's going to submit me. And then he says, because he's trained so hard at it, not just he happens to be good, but like they're thorough preparing, defending all the different submissions, and they're thorough at training, getting out of bad positions, escaping. He goes, so nobody is going to be able to hold me down and exhaust me. I'm going to be able to escape. So the worst thing that's going to happen is somebody's going to score some points on me. Maybe they'll take me down and get 2 points, or maybe they'll pass my guard for 3 points. That's it. That's the worst that's going to happen to me. And I thought about that. I said, I can kind of say something similar. Yeah, I think that's the worst that's going to happen is somebody's going to score some points on me. And man, that made it took a lot of the anxiety away. It's not MMA. Nobody's in jiu-jitsu is going to kick you in the face with their shin, right? Yeah. None of that's going to happen. So that was helpful. Yeah, definitely.
Well, yeah. But that also helped. Like, you have to be someone that you feel like no one's going to submit you.
Well, you got to put the work in for that part. Yeah. And we put the work in, so it's a great experience. Yeah. Very happy about it. And yeah, so you have all that pain, Dan, before you compete, all that discomfort and anxiety and everything. You're like, Jesus, why am I doing this? I can't even enjoy myself. Having trouble. I'm out at lunch with friends and family and I can't enjoy my lunch. What the hell? And then you get on the other side of it and you're like, that was awesome.
Yeah.
It was all worth it. It's all worthwhile.
And you didn't have to cut weight.
That was huge too. Yeah. definitely really good not having to cut weight. That's another stressor. Yeah. But all right, let's get into this. We'll give you the 5+2 bonus that we gave last week. We'll go through it quickly.
Yeah.
First one, video your sparring, Dan. Just take your phone. I have a little easel I bought on Amazon for $19, I think. You can also get a little adapter that's a wide angle lens you can put on your phone so you won't miss. If you start rolling on the mat over here and you end up over here, you won't miss anything. You'll be able to zoom in and see what's going on.
And you were saying you'll see little things that you didn't know you did. And if you don't want to watch the whole thing, see like when something went wrong for you.
Yeah, just fast forward through it.
Go try to see. Yeah, but try to see, like find spots where you can learn, right?
Yeah,
be like, what happened there? Yeah. When I got passed, or when I got tapped, or when I passed them or tapped them, like what did I do?
Yeah,
at that moment. If you don't want to watch half an hour of rolling,
exactly. Right? You don't have to do that. You could spend 10 minutes and you'll get something out of it. Number 2 was take notes before and after training. I mean, same thing. You can invest as little as time or as much time as you want. You could literally do 1 minute. I want to work on my mount escapes today. Just if you write that in a notebook, you're probably going to have a better training session. I think. Right?
I was thinking about that. Everyone here has gone to school, and everyone here knows that you have to sort of study, like keep things fresh in your mind, and that you don't just hear it and never revisit it. And that's the way I see this, like taking the notes, because I've done the opposite where like by the time I'm in the car, I basically forgot what we were doing in class. It's really bad.
But part of it, Dan, is you're not tapping when you're getting strangled, so you probably killed a bunch of brain cells.
Yeah, that was part of it too. Where I definitely was brain damaged for the ride.
Okay, number 3, world-class instructionals. I just gave an example of that. Gordon Ryan's mindset thing. Totally helpful to me. And you can also, of course, get instructionals about any passing the guard, defending your guard, takedowns.
Would you say there's so many out there zero in on specifically what you're working on? Because it used to be like, here's if you Google search jiu-jitsu passing the guard, there'll be like 1,000 passes. And, you're just like, you can't just start learning. You don't
we like John Danaher. It's a great instructor. Gordon Ryan, I like him. Garry Tonon. Basically the leading people. That's where I look, and I think that's worthwhile. And the way you use them is you just find one thing. We had Ryan Hall teaching half guard and deep half. So I basically watch his instructional, then I get out there and I play around with it, and then I go back and see if I'm missing something, what I have to add. It's very helpful. I mean, you're getting expert coaching basically on video. If you're serious about getting better, you should totally do it, because your instructor you see for the class can help you with something, but when you go to an instructional, you can really tailor what you want to learn according to your own interests. So, yeah, I think it's super effective. Number 4, positional training. So, I mean, that's how you can feel like nobody's going to hold me down, because I've done rounds in the gym where I'm starting the bottom of mount, or I'm starting the bottom of side control, or I'm starting with somebody on my back, and I just learn how to escape. I get very effective at it. So I know nobody's going to be able to hold me down. Oh, what just popped in my head? I want to say thanks to you. You were talking about how we have big guys at the academy.
Right.
So Big Pedro came in for a couple of days, especially to help me train. It was super helpful because he is so good, Dan. I think he's down to 260 pounds, I think now. He's got fit. He's riding a bike and everything. But he came in just to help me. And it made a big difference because, training with somebody like that as opposed to training with somebody who weighs 175 pounds is just a whole different ballgame. It's almost like a different martial art. And so I learned a couple things training with him. He helped me out with a couple ideas. And then it just gave me great confidence. I'm like, if I can survive against Pedro, then I got a good chance of doing something here. And I also trained with Tyler King, Joe Munro, Kevin Malloy is a big guy too, like 250. And then we did, to bring it home here, positional training. So this is interesting, Dan. We do sometimes a round where we start in a front headlock. So I'll be on my knees, and like say Kevin Malloy, he's got my neck in my arm, like a front headlock, and he's on his knees, and then we just go live from there. And wouldn't you know, I ended up in that exact position in my match. I shot in, the guy sprawled, and he had this front headlock on me, and the guy has arms like, giant machine parts. I was like, oh my God, this guy could literally break my neck down if I'm not careful here. Right. But I was able to stay calm and keep my cool because we did all those rounds. And I did rounds with big guys. So I knew how to protect my body, and I knew the steps I had to take to recover in my position. So if I didn't do that positional training, it would be way harder.
You've just been stuck down there.
And you get nervous. Yeah. But if you're like, it's all about the familiar. If you're in these positions, you're familiar, then you know exactly what you have to do. Right. So
and you react that half second faster.
Exactly. Right? Yeah.
Because you immediately know. Instead of saying, what should I do?
Yeah. The guy went to spin behind me, and I just sat and got my butterfly guard. So it worked out perfectly. So thank you to those guys. Did I say Joe Munro?
Yes.
And Nick also. Yeah, we got a lot of good big guys, and they all helped me out. I really appreciated it. Okay, the number 5 thing people should be doing is cognitive replay. So this is this idea when it's almost like a video in your brain where you and I are sparring some position, something happens, and I go, what did I just do? And I think back, and I'm like, oh, when you went to spin behind me, I sat on my hip, and I got my butterfly hook in. So what can happen is you can teach yourself by doing something kind of just on the spur of the moment. You intuitively do something that's really helpful. Now you take it from your sort of system 1 mind or whatever, and you make it deliberate. Like you take it from your, Mikey Musumeci says, take it from your unconscious and make it conscious now. And that's what cognitive replay does. So you got to be doing that. You can't just roll and never look back and analyze what happened. Like you have to keep looking and analyzing, especially those critical moments when things go right for you or things go wrong. Why did it go right? Sometimes you're like, well, I just have my underhook and I controlled them fine. But there's other times the information comes so quickly that your prefrontal cortex doesn't process it. You just do. And
I never have any idea what happened. I'd just be like, how'd he pass it? I don't know. There was like a big flurry of limbs, and now I'm past. No.
What's interesting, and I learned in this last tournament, Dan, is Gordan Ryan on his instructional is saying he wants to be as calm and clear-minded as possible going into the tournament, into the competition. And his idea is, I want to be deliberate about everything I do. I want to make the correct decisions, use the best strategies. I want to be completely deliberate. And I think that is the best way to start your match. And then Mikey Musumeci, he was saying, sometimes I'm in this match and it's really close, and all of a sudden everything goes black, and then when I come to again, I've somehow scored points and I've won the match. So I think it's speed of information. So like if I can stay clear-headed, Dan, and control my opponent and then submit him, that's perfect. But there may be moments when the guy's so good that everything speeds up. His movement speeds up, my movement has to speed up, and then the speed of information accelerates to the point where I can't be deliberate now, and I just got to go. So I think that is probably just 1 or 2 moments in a match, in a close match. But theoretically, it may never have to happen if you get good enough that you're just better than everybody. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that helped me a lot. So, because in any kind of sport you're participating in, there's an optimal level of excitation, right? Where, like, if I'm a power lifter, I'm going to stick an ammonia tablet up my nose and get as excited as possible as I'm just deadlifting, right? And then if you're doing something like maybe golf or, some kind of target shooting, then you got to calm everything down and be very precise. I'm thinking that jiu-jitsu, you probably want to be pretty calm up until that moment where everything speeds up, where you can't be quite as calm. And then you manage your energy better. Everything is better. Yeah. So number 5 was cognitive replay. We got 2 more bonus. Principles over techniques. So instead of just learning, the 9-step way to pass the guard, find out why those other steps, the principles, what's happening. And most principles, Dan, involve levers and physics and wedges and fulcrum, this type of thing. And if you start understanding those principles, Then you can learn new techniques faster. You can retain techniques faster. You can make the techniques more effective because you understand the principles underlying them.
Right. So if you're like, you need your hand like this, it's like, but why?
Exactly.
Right? Why?
Exactly.
Why?
Yeah.
Why?
Why not the other way? Yeah.
Right.
Perfect. And then the last one we had was 3 levels of training partners. So you want to train with somebody who's at about your level, so you have a competitive go. And then it could be useful to train with somebody who's better than you, because you may learn what they're doing. You may pick up something. And then when you're better than your training partner, that's when you can introduce new techniques and you can expand your game. So you probably want to have actually, John Danaher advocates like a normal amount of time with people that are not as good as you. I think he said like 80% of the time. Right. I can't remember, but it seemed to me like a lot. I was like, wow. I don't know if that's always possible, especially if you're a beginner. But.
I can guarantee I can't find 80% of the time people that are worse than me. But I get the idea.
You got the idea.
Yeah.
Okay. Now we have 4 more tips, what would we call them? Rules, things to do? What would you call them? Hacks?
Jiu-jitsu hacks.
I don't know.
Everyone knows what we're talking about.
I see you peeking over at these notes, Dan. You're trying to get ahead of the game, huh?
Yeah.
Okay, the next one I'm going to bring up is compete often. So when you compete...
You went out of order.
I did, because I'm saving this one. This is the juicy one. This is the best one. I'm saving this one for last, Dan.
Okay.
So compete often. So why compete? There's not that many things that are guaranteed in life, but if you compete, you get better. You're just forced to get better.
Do you think it's motivation where you're like, I really don't want to come in here and get smashed? So
So it sharpens up. You just pay better attention. Yeah, you're more focused. Yeah, you don't want to look like a fool. So you're just going to train harder. And then you're going to learn things too. And then, there's an honesty in competition where if you're weak in an area, it'll probably come out during the competition. And then you're like, well, I got no guard, so I guess I better get some kind of guard because people are just passing me effortlessly. So maybe if you didn't compete, you could kind of like hide that from yourself. You know what I mean?
Yeah, or just think the consequences aren't that bad. People are passing my guard, but
who cares?
Yeah, so what?
And compete often. I think often is important because it just takes the psychological stress down when you know you're going to compete a lot. If you thought it's like when we did the podcast here, we said we're going to do at least 100 episodes. Then if the first,
I like that too. When we were stumbling through the first couple episodes, it was that actually helped to be like, look, there's going to be 100 of these, so don't even worry about it.
Don't even worry about it.
Now, when we're stumbling through these episodes, it still doesn't bother me. At 100, it's like, well, I've stumbled through 98 others, so.
And it's a trap if you don't compete a lot. If you compete like once, I know some people that they have this. What is it called? Haymakers for Hope. You know that, Dan?
Yeah.
It's like charity boxing. So you get some poor people, some poor guys who are successful in business, and they go, I want to do a nice thing. It'll be exciting. I'll learn how to box a little bit. I'll raise some money for cancer, and I'll do Haymakers for Hope. And they have one boxing match in their life, and they probably have one fight in their life. They've probably never been in a fight in their life. And that's a lot of pressure. Because if you lose, that's not good. You know what I mean? That's not a good feeling to have one fight and lose. Right? This wouldn't happen to you because you've had so many drunken brawls with frat boys and whatever that you're pretty comfortable with your record. One more win or loss on your record, Dan, it's not going to affect you really one way or the other, right?
That's not true.
You know what I mean.
I know exactly what you mean. It's but yeah, you're right. You don't want to be like, I've lost every single conflict I've ever been in. Right? Like that's like if you go once, you're like, all I've done is lose. I've never won.
That's not a good feeling. Right. But if you set out in your mind to compete many, many, many times, you can lose the first few and still be good with it, Okay.
Right. Because no matter, even, like I said, it's sort of very commonplace for people to be like, I suck at jiu-jitsu. You see people that are really good saying that, and nobody that I can think of goes for an extended period of time, make up the amount, a year, 6 months, and still loses all the time, right? Like at the gym. Do you know what I mean?
Oh, right.
Like,
yeah.
you do have some experience winning.
Yeah.
No matter who you are.
Yeah.
And
definitely.
So when you're saying for competition, you want to have it. You also don't. That opens up a possibility of never winning, which you're never going to have at the gym. Like you might be
right.
I went once, I lost, I've never won.
Right.
Could be a bad feeling.
Right.
But if you go enough,
you're going to win sooner or later. Yeah, definitely. And if you're doing all these things we're talking about, you're going to win probably right off the bat. The next rule or tip is learn optimal strategy. So what does that mean? Like if you look at MMA, I think Khabib might have the optimal strategy, right? He's going to go out there, move around, hit you hard, take you down, and not let you get up again, pummel you, submit you, whatever. But he has his strategy, and then when he goes to train, he just trains his strategy. I'm sure he tries to expand his striking a little bit, but he knows how to take you down, he knows how to control you, and he just keeps doing that. So if you know the optimal strategy for your sport, that informs how you should be training. So pretty much no-gi jiu-jitsu, the optimal strategy is to get back control and get a rear naked choke. Like there's a lot of different ways to win, but that's probably the cornerstone of it right now. And depending on what tournament you're in and what rule set, then leg attacking is also important. So like the Danaher team, the Death Squad, they're the most successful no-gi probably team right now. And that's kind of how they're approaching things. They're like, we're going to try to get your back or get into your legs and get a submission. So once you know that's the optimal strategy, then you're going to invest your training in those areas to make sure that you're sound in all those areas,
Right.
Yeah. So I think learning optimal strategy sounds simplistic, but it's important. Yeah. Now the next one is, I say, relax and let the technique and movement do the work for you. So you really know the technique when you can do it in a relaxed fashion, There's too many people that tense their muscles and they try to muscle things through. And the only time you really want to tense is when you have your arms around your opponent's neck and you're looking to finish them. Or if you have their arm or their leg, when you're finishing them with a finishing technique. Otherwise, you kind of want to be relatively relaxed. You want to move and you want to have the inherent leverage of the position do the work for you, not your muscular energy. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
A lot of times when I'm teaching a new technique, I tell people, put yourself in a drowsy state and just do it as if you were drowsy to begin with. Because sometimes people get so tense, Dan, when we're trying to teach them a technique, they're like fighting themselves. I'm like, put your hand here. And they're like, I can't even move their arm,
You can't move it to like where it's supposed to be.
I can't even put it where it's supposed to be because they're resisting it. I'm like, relax, get sleepy. And I think that's another one that seems obvious or seems simplistic, but it actually means a lot. If you got to work really hard to make something work, it's probably not great technique. It's probably not optimal, And now I got the last one, Dan. This is it. And
Before you give it away, though,
yeah,
I do think it's also. I mean, I don't know if you agree with this or not, but we said different versions of this in the past, where someone might be like, "Oh, I'm not going to do all these things,"
right?
But then I would say, don't jump from there to doing none of them. Might be like that's too. Like, don't want to be like, I'm not going to video myself, so I'm out on everything. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's sort of like, well, if you do some of them.
They're only going to help you.
Yeah, they're not like a unit, like you must do all these things together.
Yeah.
Any of them you do should be a big help.
They're going to contribute to your development. Yeah, definitely. And then the last one here is come to training to develop yourself, not to win the training session. I think this is so huge, Dan, and it's so challenging for people to do. It just seems to go against our human nature. We want to compete. We want to win. We want to move up the status ladder, and we don't want to fall down the status ladder. And we get so obsessed with that we forget about developing ourselves, forget about improving our technique. So I ask myself that question every time I come to the academy. what am I going to develop in myself today? Or what are these guys, my students, what do they need to develop? How can I help them develop? And that always gives me the right answer for whatever I should be doing that day. And I think, too, about the academy itself. How can I create this environment to foster development? What can I do to the academy itself to foster even more development in our members? I'm trying to be obsessed about it because I think it requires obsession, because our human nature pulls us back to the petty status stuff.
Yeah. So as much as you go in with that, if you have a bad role, you might then have to try to get your head back in the right place, right? If you find yourself fighting with your status, like, I can't believe this guy with a lower belt just tapped me.
That's it. Dan, what do you think the most stressful situation in a training academy is? Training jiu-jitsu in the academy. I have an idea, but I'm curious to what you would think.
Rolling with someone that is lower than, like, a lower belt than you, but you feel is maybe better than you.
Yeah. You just nailed it, right? It's like there's all these rungs on the ladder, and it's that SOB who's on that rung right underneath you, and you feel him breathing down your neck, and he wants to pass you. And I think our human nature, that's the most painful thing for us, is to get passed on that ladder, just by that guy right behind you. That's it. Like, not the guy way down the ladder, it's that guy right behind you. Isn't that weird? But that's definitely the most stressful thing.
Because I always know, like, I remember way, way back to first starting jiu-jitsu. It's really, really fun. It's hard to even remember, but there was no pressure.
No pressure.
I can remember just coming in like...
You're on that bottom rung of the ladder, right?
Ancient days, and I would just like show up at Roberto's, like, and I didn't know anybody, but they had an open mat. And I felt like, I'm a white belt, man. Like, I don't... You know what I mean? Like...
If I do anything positive today, it's a huge victory.
Yeah,
right?
Someone goes, "Oh, you feel strong." I'm like, "Oh, so at least victory. I felt strong."
Yeah,
you know, like, you know, if I do anything at all, so there was just no pressure. And like for me now, you know, or for a lot of people, if you're rolling with a black belt, it's not it's a very calm roll.
Yeah,
because you're like, I'm not, you know, whatever happens, happens.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
And then with the beginners, the white belts are usually pretty calm rolls too. Because they're not going to get you.
Yeah. Oh, right.
At least for me.
Yeah. I hear what you're saying.
But then, like, there's like big, strong blue belts that are younger than me, and I'm like, oh, this
is going to suck.
Yeah. A good chance he gets me, you know? And and that's where you start getting a little stressed out.
Yep. And you stop focusing on development. You start focusing on protecting your status, which could mean not rolling with that person or talking to them during the roll or some other weird strategies, tactics, like start instructing them as they're beating you. Yeah. As they're passing you, go, yes, very good. Right. I like the way you pushed my knee down there. Very effective. Right. Yeah. Right. All those weird strategies.
Stuff, yeah.
Dan, I remember, I don't do it now, but when I was like a blue belt, say, where I was at Boston Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, I think this happens at every academy. In my head, I think I had the entire pecking order of like every student. So in my mind, if there was 200 students there, I knew who was the best, and I knew who was number 200, and I knew where my position in that roster was. Like, oh yeah, I'm 68. I'm right over here. Whatever the hell I was. You know what I mean? Isn't that weird?
Yeah, to that extent, it's kind of gets it. But I also think but sometimes natural, like, right? I get curious a little bit. Like it's not. Even if my head's not in the right or the wrong place, I'm just curious. Like if two guys crush me, it's natural, I think, to be curious how they do against each other, right?
You know what it is, Dan? Now that you mention it, I bet from an evolutionary perspective, it's valuable for me to know the status ladder in my community, because I don't want to accidentally step on somebody's toes who's way above me, right? That could be not good for me, right? So it's probably good. And then if there's some conflict between two guys, who's higher? I'm going to be in the side of the guy who's higher in status, right? So it's probably natural that we want to know that, and it probably gives us a sense of comfort, right? Probably relieves anxiety if you kind of know the lay of the land, so to speak, and where everybody fits in, right?
Right.
Yeah.
But I think it is, like you're saying, it's very valuable too. If someone with a lower belt than me gets the better of me, to just let it, like, to try to, even if it has to be actively, if I actively have to let it go, be like, think it's come good. On, stop having negative thoughts about that.
Know what I do now? I just ask them, how the hell did you do that to me? Like, I think Anthony Twininger did it. He's got an amazing jiu-jitsu, right? First time I rolled with him, he like threw me on my head and almost broke my neck somehow. And I'm like, how the hell did that happen? And luckily, he's a good enough guy that he says, oh, I did this. I put this butterfly hook in, and you reach here. And then since I'm the instructor, I basically forced them to teach me to stop their game.
You're right.
Then I get better. So it really works, actually. But that's what it should be about anyways.
Anyone's willing to do that. I've never met almost anyone that wouldn't be happy to show you what they did or how to stop their own move or, At least in our academy, that's the kind of atmosphere I want to have. I remember, though, back in the day, I think I was a white belt, and I went against this blue belt, and he passed my guard because I didn't have a guard, and he kind of went north-south, and he got a Kimura grip on me, and he did a Kimura from north-south. You're familiar with that, right? Sure. Pretty common technique. And I wasn't familiar with it. I was like, what the hell was that? I go, what was that? He goes, nothing. Let's just keep going. And he wouldn't even tell me the name of the shoulder lock. That's how it was back then. It was a little ruthless. But I'm happy to report, within about 6 months, I was tormenting him, torturing him, tapping him at will. That's the downside. That's why you don't want to torment the new guys. If they get better.
They get better.
Then they remember.
So
I remember there was someone from way back then that was notorious for, I'll tell you after, who was like notorious for tormenting everyone.
Okay.
And then he took like a year off.
Oh.
And he came back, and I was told that it was just a brutal experience when he came back because all the guys got better and were like, they all remembered how nasty he was to them, like a lot of like knee on the face.
Knee in the face. I was going to say that.
And then he had done that to everyone.
Dan, so you're not talking about me, are you?
No, not. And then when they came back, it was like everyone was good and was like, I can't wait to get back at that guy.
Mm.
So another reason to be nice to the people that are
that's not
helpful.
Good. That's not good.
But again, all this stuff is nonsense, right? It's all should just be trying to develop yourself.
Trying to develop yourself. And Dan, there's a couple guys I train with still who are very rough. Like you get a lot of accidental elbows and scraping on the face and fingernails all over the place. And I never complain because I figure it's a martial art. I got to find a way for him not to elbow me in the face, even though it's just jiu-jitsu. And there is a way for you to do that. And then it just makes you better at jiu-jitsu.
I've talked to you about this. I don't believe in complaining about someone going too rough.
Yeah.
Unless there's something really dirty, like they really hurt you.
Oh, right. If they grab your pinky and try to break it or something. Yeah, that's kind of out of line. But yeah, as long as I'm not going to get injured, you can bruise me, batter me, whatever. I don't care. Just don't take me out of training for an extended period of time.
Mindset. So the final point of this mindset of development. So here's something that would annoy me. So here's like a more subtle example.
Yeah.
I would be like really friendly. Sometimes there'd be fairly new, say, sort of white belts, and say it's no gi, so they don't know who I am or don't know any level I have.
Right.
And I'd be very sort of nice to them, very sort of like, oh, that's a good move, blah, blah, blah. And suddenly there'd be a new guy who doesn't know much jiu-jitsu. They would take my nice approach and they'd start like instructing me. They'd sort of take that superior. They'd be like, what you want to do here is, and I'd be like, okay, now I'm gonna hurt, I'm gonna punish you in this role.
Be punished.
And I would get mad.
Yeah.
But again, all this, I would still put it under stuff we're saying you shouldn't be thinking about.
Shouldn't. It's
you know
a
what I mean? Like
distraction.
any of that. Like so even if a guy does that to me, I should be thinking, I'm just trying to learn something. I don't care what he's saying.
Yeah.
To me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It doesn't matter to me if he's talking to me in a way that annoys me. Like,
right.
So what?
So what? Yeah. Dan, we used to line people up by rank at the end of class or something. I'm not ever going to do any of that again. I'm going to de-emphasize rank as much as possible. I mean, when people are in belts, they get their belts, and we'll celebrate them. But I think it's just an enormous distraction, from the real development. Because once you buy into, if you really buy into developing yourself and developing your game, you kind of forget about the belts and everything. You really do. And it's great when you get a promotion, but it's really great when you can suddenly triangle choke somebody from your guard and you couldn't do it before. That's really great. That's feels powerful. That's empowering. And it's something. It's within your control. It's what you've done. You're ultimately getting your belt from an instructor. So it's somebody else saying, "Good job, attaboy," which is fine, but it's a little bit out of your direct control. It's in your indirect control, but improving yourself, that's directly in your control. Improving your game, developing yourself. So I think, I don't know, maybe it's just because I'm the black belt now, I never think about ranks, or belts, or anything. And I love it. We get guys, white belts, blue belt, we get guys learning from each other all the time of different ranks and giving each other, good training sessions. So I love it. I hope we can keep this atmosphere at the academy, and I would recommend that culture to anybody that's training jiu-jitsu. Just focus on development. Solves everything. All right, Dan, I think that's about it, man.
Sounds good.
Before we wrap up, everybody who's listening, please subscribe to this YouTube channel or to this app, this podcast, however you want to do it. If you're on YouTube, subscribe and hit the notifications so you get our new videos that come out. And tell your friends about it. Dan, I think we have 590 subscribers right now, but we really want to get to 1,000. So hopefully we made some good moves recently with it. We've gone up quite a bit, so let's keep that going. And we'll talk to you all soon. Take care.